Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Star Trek Lost Stars. My name is Tony Morrow. That's Morrow like tomorrow. Why am I saying that? Who knows? Anyways, welcome back to Star Trek Lost Stars. If you're joining us for the first time, thank you for joining us live. If you're joining us on the replay, thank you so much. And for those of you who are returning customers, so to speak, thank you so much for joining us again. If you're joining us now and you're thinking, what in the world is Star Trek Lost Stars, Tony? Well, Star Trek Lost Stars is a turn-based war game that we play online using the Federation and Empire rule set as published by the Amarillo Design Bureau. It is set in the Starfleet universe, which is basically old-school Star Trek, the original series and the animated series. Think Kirk and Spock. Sort of Shatner's Kirk and Spock as opposed to the J.J. Abrams universe. And we play it online. We play it using a platform called Vassal, which allows us, and you'll see the map here shortly, and we do this turn-based game, and it is surprisingly engaging and so much fun, and we share that experience with you on these live streams. If this is, if you're joining us again, or if you're joining us for the first time, and this is something that interests you or you would be interested in participating in, then please feel free to tap a subscribe button or follow, depending on what platform you're catching us on, or join us on the Facebook page, which is now in the chat, and message me directly through our Facebook page, and you can potentially join us in the next campaign. So briefly, before I sort of get into the rest of the episode here, as a reminder of what the next campaign is, you can choose your faction, one of potentially 15 factions, including, of course, the classic Federation, Klingons, Romulans, as well as other TOS series regulars such as the Gorn, the Kzinti, the Lyrans, and many more. Like I say, head over to our Facebook page and connect with us there, and you can find out how to join. The next campaign will be starting in January 2022, so relatively shortly from now, relatively soon. And we currently have 13 players with a maximum of 15. Now we are looking and pushing to try and get as high as we can get, and so we are looking for those extra players. One little interesting tidbit is, as some of the folks that are joining us now, I see Bill's here, Daniel's here, Jim's here. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a sort of a international audience. I know that, for example, Daniel's coming to us from Colombia. Jim is over in England, and Bill is in the United States. And of course, I'm here in the Great White North of Canada, in Victoria, British Columbia on the West Coast. So if you're on West Coast like me, happy morning to you. If you're west of me, happy afternoon. And of course, for Jim and all those of you on the other continents, good evening. So we have such a sort of an international crew. We're looking for, to diversify as much as possible. But really, at the end of the day, if you like things like Starfleet Battles, if you like strategy games like Axis and Allies, or even Risk, or anything that's turn-based, and you have any interest in sci-fi, then please join us here. But with that said, let's get into the exciting news of today. So as you saw on today's thumbnail for this video, the title is Lions and Tigers and Squids. Oh my. For those of you not catching that reference, that's of course the Wizard of Oz. And I was hoping to bring to you today an exciting map that revealed the Lyrans, which, to be fair, are not real lions. They're more like mountain lions or lynx. That's the comparison. The Kzinti, which are basically space tigers, and the Hydrans, which we affectionately refer to as squids, even though they're so much more than that. Unfortunately, I don't have that map for you today. I'm expecting it at some point today. So be on the lookout for a live stream this weekend. Today is Saturday, the 16th of October. So potentially coming to you tomorrow on Sunday with a quick map reveal of what the exciting stuff that's coming, or the exciting stuff that has happened and how the map has opened up. I don't want to spoil it, but to give you kind of a hint as to what's coming, as per the thumbnail, the map is opening up with the other players that have joined us so far. As I mentioned just moments ago, we're looking to start this new campaign in January, and some of the players, those 13 players so far, who have joined us in this campaign have joined us as sort of minor factions or sort of smaller empires growing in the shadows, so to speak, in order to be able to become more familiar with our processes, the in-house rules, how we play this online, the basic sort of tempo of it all, and basically making sure that they sort of get all those early mistakes and growing pains out of the way early, so that when we start the full campaign with all our players in January, that will be not as rough a start, and you're not going to be making those mistakes in that campaign, but rather you'll have incorporated those lessons learned for a sort of great effect. So that's the idea, and we have so many of those 13 players in this campaign now, and they will be revealed, I am hoping, in the next turn. But with that said, let's quickly go to not that map. This map, there we go. So this is turn 101. And I'm very aware that you may not have seen this map already, although I've talked about it much. So let's go through a quick top to bottom, round the bases, so to speak, and let's check our data before we start looking at the map. So right off the bat, let's look at EP. EP is the amount of money that you make per turn. As we can see here on this map, I'll put this sort of closer to my head so it makes a little bit more sense. You can see that the Borax are at 70, as in they are making, or 700, they are making 70 EP per turn. The Federation, or sorry, I should say, we'll go top to bottom. So the Borax are at the top of the heap. My correction, the Tholians are at the top of the heap at 70.5. They are now the new kings of the castle, so to speak. They are making the most amount of money per turn. Follow that up with the Borax and the Klingons tied at 70. The Federation, the old king of the castle, now at 67.5, followed by the Paravians at 57.5. So 10 EP difference between the Feds and the Paravians, and then everybody else is floating around 70. As we go to fleet cap, which again is sort of a measure of the size of your fleet, we can see here that from top to bottom, we can see that the Borax are, that they are sporting 93 ships, that they have a total attack factor of 233, and fleet cap of 443. Now it's interesting. You'll see the defense factors are 443, but their fleet cap is 439. Not sure why that's the case. Usually the fleet cap number is a little bit higher because it incorporates the attack and defense factors, incorporates any crippled ships. Why it would be the other way around, I'm not quite sure. Might be. I'd have to ask the game master exactly on the calculations in the back end of Vassal and how they're doing that. But effectively, you can see fleet cap 439. That's the sort of the size of their fleet. As we go down, we can see that the Federation is at 153 ships. Man, they keep pumping them out. They are by far the biggest faction or fleet size in the game, with 544 attack factors, dwarfing everybody else. Not only just in attack factors, but that 544 dwarfs everybody else's defense factors, which I find particularly interesting. You can see their fleet cap is at 715, so again, big fleet. We can see the Klingons are at 124 ships, so they're basically the second largest fleet size, with 481, 471 respectively. Interesting to note here is that this is sort of the first time the attack factors have sort of overtaken the defense factors for us. And that's really because of the proliferation of E4Ms in my fleet. E4Ms, the escorts / frigates that we have 4 attack, 3 defense. So that sort of more attack than defense factor piece is factoring in that calculation, of course. And you can see the total fleet cap is 481. The Paravians at 94 ships. So 94 is an interesting number because obviously they're continuing to build ships sort of in response to their war with the Federation. And you can see that their attack factors are starting to get up there. They're 348, 433 respectively, with 449. Now, what's interesting, if you look, we'll touch on the Tholians first, but look at the fleet cap numbers as we go down here, and I'll highlight it in a sec. But there's really kind of most of the other players are all in the same ballpark except for the Federation. So let's go to the Tholians. You can see that they have 120 ships. Of course, very close to the Klingons in size, but notice that their attack factors are quite literally half. I mean, 245 times 2 is a little bit more than 41, but but you can see that there is, quite a delta here between the attack factors and the defense factors, whereas the defense factors are very similar, obviously 471 to 47, and the total fleet cap 41 to 487 respectively. We basically have a similar size fleet. It's just that the offensive potential of the Klingon fleet is much higher, which is very interesting. I mean, just kind of like as a comparison and sort of a characteristic of the different factions. So as I was saying, you look at the Borax with a total fleet cap of 439, the Klingons 41, the Paravians at 449, and the Tholians at 47. We're all floating around the 450 mark. I mean, 450, 460 when it comes to total fleet cap. But then the outlier, the Federation at 715, that just tells you the size of their fleet, like how many ships they have in the mix. That's just, wow. All right. So let's just take a quick run around the block geographically here. So let's take a look at Big Red being the Tholian faction on the top left of the map. You will see a couple of interesting things. So first of all, I think I might have highlighted this in the last turn, but you will notice that there are no more independent minor factions or planets that are not incorporated into the Tholian, I was going to say the Tholian web, but the Tholian Empire. So you can tell that, and I had mentioned this before, when they had discovered all these minor planets, or minor factions rather, that was going to be a huge boom to their economy once they integrated those folks into their empire. And that's what we've seen. We've seen the Tholians rise from like in the mid 50s to now being 70.5 EP and being the most sort of economically powerful faction in the game. Also interesting to note, this has been going on for a while, but just kind of highlights where they're at. You can see that they're starting to build these BSMs here. BSMs being base station middle era. So it's basically, you can see above it, for example, there is a YBS and this is a BSM. I suppose it would be more appropriate to call it a MBS, but no. So the YBS is just a Y era base station. This is an M era base station, and there's a significant difference. Obviously, you can see in its capabilities. You've got the 10 attack, 9 defense, and so on. This upgrades later to what's called a BATS or a BATS M, and it becomes a straight 12. I believe it's straight 12 or 1210 maybe. But it becomes a more powerful, and then the next step from the BATS is a BATS M is an SB or Starbase M, which significantly increases its attack and defense and capabilities from there. So it's interesting to note and monitor the progression of their base building because it gives us an indication of where they are in tech. Base building tech is a, how do I put this? It's a big strategic factor in how hard a target another empire might be to attack. Once they start deploying these kinds of base stations, it's just a matter of time, of course, before they get the star bases. And that will be, star bases are a hard target. You've got to have substantially more firepower than, for example, the Tholians currently have based on their the disposition of their ships. You need a lot more firepower to be able to punch in and take out star bases. So that's just kind of where that's at. Generally speaking, though, as far as from our perspective as the Klingons, the Tholians have been a fantastic partner. No complaints, really. They've been sort of, in our diplomatic emails, they've had a sort of an opinion or two, but they've always been very trying to keep the peace, so to speak, and very much appreciate that. They don't interfere in sort of other affairs, relatively speaking. As we come over here to the Klingon Empire, you'll notice a bit of a void over here. That's because of our wonderful bug problem. Let me take a quick sip. So, yes, there's no good way to say this. The swarm is continuing to bug us, pardon the pun, and is just making life nothing but a headache. I can give you an update on the status of the swarm. I'll do that after I finish the round robin here, but basically the swarm continues to pester and really cause issues with the Klingon Empire. As we move over to the right and a little bit down, what do we find here? Oh, my head's in the way, of course. Let me move my head, pardon me. There we go. Now, what do we see over here? Well, so what we see is a ship class or size class 4 and slow. Now, what does that mean? Now, I know when I first started playing this game, it kind of caught me off guard. The size classes, I would have thought that the bigger the number, the bigger the ship. No. The bigger the number, the smaller the ship. So a size class 4 ship or vessel is a relatively small ship, and it's slow moving. In this case, this most likely is a YFES, or a Y-era freighter exploration. That's what I think this is, or it's some kind of small freighter, because it is a single ship, it is slow moving, and it's small. Now over here, what's interesting is that you've got the, it's hard, maybe hard to see, but this says warp stabilized under construction, and it's being sort of serviced by an SC3. So that tells me that a base station is being built here, most likely a YBS, and, well, definitely a YBS, and that the ship building it, SC3, is a tug. Tug most likely being of a sort of a cruiser class hull, and that's what's building that. SC4s typically are things like a frigate or a destroyer. SC3s are cruisers. 2s tend to be things like dreadnoughts, and then, of course, 1's like a battleship, which Klingons can build. Let's go down here. We can see along the upcoming Maginot Line, as I've joked, the border with the Paravians. We can see that the Paravians don't really have much going on here. The Borax, just to kind of give you a quick highlight here, the Borax Fleet has not changed. They continue to be what I would call completely ineffectual. The exception being the CAEs, which are basically M-era cruisers. But they're escort cruisers. They have a 7.8, and they're decent, but I mean, that's the only thing that's really of significance there. The only other note here as far as like looking forward as a potential, let's say, target, if we were to have a fight with the Paravians again, you can see that there is a number of Tholian ships there. They have a M-era destroyer, some of these patrol cruisers, and or whatever the PCs stand for, and then a Y convoy. Interesting about the Y convoy makes me think they're going to build a station there, which would be interesting. Very curious to see what that's going to be like. Obviously, you can see that they have BSMs. I was talking about that before with regards to the sort of the state of technology. Just switching my head so it's less of an obstacle here. And then you can see down the line we have, of course, ships continuing to defend this YDK. We have base building continuing here and here. This will happen as well. And as we go down of course, my head's now in the way again. As we go down, we can see that the exploration cruiser is continuing to do its thing. This tug is getting ready to build a base here. And lo and behold, what do we find here? Another Juggernaut fleet. Last turn, we destroyed or caused a Juggernaut fleet to retreat, and now all of a sudden a big Juggernaut fleet shows up. I say big because I now know the composition. I can tell you about that in a moment. It is killing me. When they say it rains, it pours, man, last turn, for example, you might remember we destroyed or had an encounter with an orb. That was a monster that was up in this neck of the woods, and it destroyed the base that was here in J11. And so we ended up destroying that, and then unfortunately this swarm had moved here. And there's an interesting rule around retrograde movement. My initial plan had been to take Southwest Fleet, which I believe had been, I think, over the colony here, move up, engage the orb, and then retro over here, which is something you can do. But much like the supply rules, you cannot retro through hexes that are within the reaction range of another or enemy vessel. So, for example, unless you have similar ships in surrounding area, basically the idea being that they could react into that space and interrupt your transit. That would be the case if you were attacking. So if you were moving to attack, they could move into your hex to stop you or pin you. Also, when it comes to supply can be cut off if you have ships that are adjacent to hexes where supply will run through, and they do not have a similar ship in an adjacent hex. Basically, the idea being as supply ships come through, your ships can react into that hex and cut off supply. Same idea here with retrograde. Retrograde movement being that when you retro or move after an attack and you're looking to go to a home base kind of thing, the retrograde movement is interrupted by ships or enemies that are within reaction range of one hex, basically, of that route. Unless you have other ships in adjacent hexes that could react to support or allow you to get through. So, for example, if I had a ship in Hotel 9, then after the attack here, they could have, I think actually the orbit moved to Kilo 12. So I could have moved up this way, northwest. And if I had a ship in Hotel 9, then it would have been able to interrupt or like allow transit of supply through these hexes. And I have ships here, or at least one non-crippled ship that could react and allow transit here. So it would have allowed that if that was the case, but of course it's not, and I can't. So that's why the ships in Southwest Fleet got stuck there. That was a particular sticking point between me and the GM. I was going back and forth because I had a misunderstanding around retrograde movement. I thought it did not or was not impacted by those by the same rules that would impact supply, but they are. So something to remember for those of you who are playing. Holy Dinah! Look at all this commentary. Let me take a quick pause as I roll down to the Juggernaut fleet and start talking about the feds. Let's do a quick recap of the chat so far. So we've got Jim, Bill, Paul, Daniel, everybody in the chat. Tripedal tactacular trash cans, or triple T's. That's what we're going to call the hydrants from now on. Triple T's. There you go. There's another word for that kind of stuff, but that's not a family appropriate for this show. Daniel saying this way we can make whole new mistakes in the new campaign. Absolutely. You got to... Oh, my goodness. My jokes are going in a bad direction. I got to stop. Daniel Eastland, the arsenal of democracy. Interesting. I'm wondering what is the arsenal you are bringing forth. Bill says, we will be the monkey wrench, obviously, breaking the gears, or the sabots of sabotage. Obviously, a Star Trek 6 reference. Hello. We have Daniel Eastland, size class 1 bases. As well, I believe I'll look it up in the MSIT here, battle cruisers. Size 2 battleships and dreadnoughts, I'll look that up. Size class 3 cruisers and size class 4 destroyers and frigates. Jim's laughing, of course, because of Daniel's attention to detail. So excellent. Now let's go down here to the Fed border with the Paravians. This is the big sort of reveal on this turn. You notice the change in the neutral zone? So it's one of two things that's happened. One, the Feds and the Paravians have either come to an agreement to agree on that neutral zone, or the disputed hex timeline had elapsed. And I can't remember when that started, but I have a feeling it probably elapsed, or some combination of the two. Like it elapsed and the Paravians said, we're not going to fight you on it. But here's the nugget, or the hidden info in this particular screen. In the neutral zone between them, you will notice that there is a resource that is red, i.e. it's Paravian. Now count the distance between it and the nearest supply point. So let's say it was here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is there anyone closer? This base up here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What does that tell us? That tells us that the Paravians have supply 5. In this game, you start off with supply 3 and you slowly work your way forward to supply 4, then supply 5, and supply 6 is the max you can get. Supply 5, why is that significant? Because M and GW era ships move 6. So he can supply ships as far as 6, retreat into a hex, and have full supply. As opposed to what you could do before, which was, or had to do before, which was reach out with an attack, and you would have to retrograde, assuming you didn't have like a convoy or something else providing extended supply, you would have to retrograde to get back into supply. Because if you're caught out of supply, it's as if your ship is crippled for attack factors. You're not able to basically unload heavy weapons. And so that's a real important piece to remember when fighting them, because supply 5 sort of changes the dynamics of the battle space, which is really important to note. What else do we got here? Well, we can see that the Feds are continuing to explore and expand into this Great Gray yonder, as well as the Borax, and interestingly, also the Paravians. So this border was negotiated with whom I'm not exactly sure whether it was the Borax or the Feds that initially agreed to this border, but they're now exploring beyond their border. Now, who would be upset about that? Would it be the Borax? Would it be the Feds? Would it be nobody? Who knows? If there's a minor faction or somebody else in this gray area, like we see up here, there's somebody up here in this gray area, then they might get a little testy about it. But regardless, the Feds and the Borax are both doing their best to move in each other's direction as quickly as possible. So I have a feeling they're going to touch relatively soon. And either they'll find what's in the what's hiding in the dark, or they'll bump into each other, and then that'll get exciting. Let's go over to the Borax real quick. I'll move my head. Here we go. Now, here's the interesting little... I totally missed this. There is a new wormhole. So up here in Tholian space, you can see that there's this wormhole in Romeo 14, which is right next to this resource in the space. Let's just take a quick look at Tholian First Fleet just so we can see what's in there. Oh, well, look at that. They have a couple cruisers, CMs, which are 6-7 ships. They've got a total of 5 destroyers, and it looks like PCs are the equivalent of their frigates, and they've got a total of 5 of those, and then a scout. And very important to note that they have a scout, because scouts really start to factor into the game, especially into combat, and they've sent a PC through there. Another thing to note, they sent a PC through and it didn't get crippled. Now, we already knew this, but this was just kind of a reminder that the Tholians have reached the point in their technology where they can transit or travel through without being crippled, and I suspect they can also provide supply through wormholes. They've been exposed to wormholes and have explored that long enough with us because of our initial trade through a wormhole that I'm sure that they have, at this point, have full accessibility through wormholes. It's a non-issue for them. Now, but what's interesting about that, so they've showed up in Borax space, and let's see, Blue Dragon. The Borax have Blue Dragon Fleet, which has a dreadnought. Interesting that the dreadnought's almost the equivalent of the Tholian cruiser. A bunch of YCAs and some escort frigates. Those frigates are terrible. 3 of them, they only have 4.5 attack. Goodness gracious. Yeah. Very, very interesting. So the question here will be, as this evolves, will the Tholians and the Borax go tete-a-tete in any kind of way? Will there be a conflict? I'll be very curious to see. Or will there be something else? So will there be some kind of like, I don't know, diplomatic solution there? It'll be interesting to note. And then, of course, we saw this before in the previous term, but the Romulans have been popping up on the edge of Paravian space. And the scuttlebutt is that things are a little testy between the Paravians and their new neighbors. Not necessarily the Romulans, but there seems to be some voices from the dark coming out. So there's more than just the Romulans here. And there's been some encounters or some discussions between the Paravians and some of these voices in the dark. So very interesting to note. And I'll be interested to see in the 102 turn, because this is 101, so interested to see what that looks like when it comes through. So that's not the screen I was looking for. Here we go. So very interesting as far as we go around the map, and that's 101. 101, the turn is essentially done. We're just waiting on sort of like a couple little battle resolutions, and then the 102 turn is going to come, and I'll be very interested to see what that looks like. Now, spoiler warning here. I've already engaged in diplomatic discussion with the sort of unknown contacts on the eastern edge of Klingon space. That was dirty word in my mouth, Romulan. So we figured out that they are the Kzinti. The Kzinti being the space tigers, and we have sent 2 dreadnoughts and 15 frigates to where they were building that base station to go say hi. Now, the Klingons are a rational race. We don't shoot first, but if you touch us, if you sort of like, hit us first, we'll put it this way. If you throw a punch, we'll knock you out. If you pull a knife, we'll pull a gun. You bring you bring a conventional warhead, I'll bring a nuke. That kind of thing. And so, but our initial discussions with the Kzinti have been very productive, and we'll see what that looks like when the map reveals. One of the key things there being that we've agreed to exchange navigational data, and that's sort of like in-game terminology for sharing maps. And so what that does is that there's 2 things that happen. One, when you are and I'll use this as an example here in the map. So for example, you'll see here in this hex, we've got a base that's been built. We have a YDK that is completing actually this. Is it this turn? I can't remember if 116F. No, 116S spring is this turn. 116F is next turn. So this will be completed in next turn, but we've got a YBS here. So regardless, there is a base station here, and it provides its supply. So let's say our supply is 4. 1, 2, 3. Woo, this base is certainly within our supply. Once this base is completed, and a key piece of information here is that this base, as we remove the counters, is in a explored hex that I've already explored. So I know that there's something there. I've explored that space, and as soon as that base comes online, my traders will go there to swap goods, and boom, the maps will open up. Because the argument is, what happens is traders, merchants, will start swapping star maps and trying to figure out their new trade routes, and in the exchange, the dissemination of that data or intelligence gets spread between the 2 empires, and boom, maps open up over a relatively, keeping in mind every turn is 6 months, so in the span of 6 months, the map opens up. So that's the idea. So basically, if you have supply to another base, the map opens up. The thing is, you've got to know that they're there and have supply to them. At least one of you do. One of you need to have that. Or you agree to exchange nav data. So as soon as that base is completed, our maps would open up. I'm just trying to get ahead of it, buy a turn, and swap our nav data as much as I can. So that's what that looks like. Now, I talked to you about the bug problem before. Let me share with you what happened with the bugs. Oh my God. I hate the swarm. Hate them. As I mentioned before, I have this massive fleet of I have what was it, like 18, is it 18? I have a lot of frigates and a couple cruisers in this Southwest fleet. And I was hoping that they were going to make it to that YBS before the swarm just happened to move in that direction and take it out, because the ships that were there were all crippled from the previous encounter, with the exception of 2 of those ships I was able to repair, and were certainly not going to be enough to defend the base completely. So, spoiler warning, it attacked the base, and I was able to defend it as much as I could. The thing is, though, the swarm moves first before my turn, so they moved before I could repair anything else. So I had 2 repaired frigates, E4Ms, and then everything else was crippled. That sucks. So what ended up happening was it blew out the base. It destroyed what I call all the chaff, and but the valuable stuff, meaning the tug and let me just double check. I think the tug and the exploration cruiser got away. No. All right, so I lost the base station. I lost 3 of my E4Ms, which sucks. I lost the E1T, which was that theater transport, or the little ship that had no attack factor but could be like a strategic movement point. So I lost those ships and retreated, which means that the D4E survived, which was the exploration cruiser, and the tug. So the tug and the D4E survived. They were able to get out. Everything else was lost. That sucks. However, I came back the very next day and attacked them with a fleet of a D7, 2 D6s, and 18 E4Ms against 34 of these Banshees. Now, Banshees are, as was described earlier, they have the equivalency of a 2 or 3 of them are equivalent to a frigate. It wasn't quite clear whether a frigate meant like a 4 attack and a 5 defense or what was going on there. But nonetheless, I went in there and went a guns a-blazing, and here's the result. I crippled 16 of my 18 E4Ms. Unbelievable. And then retroed or got away to my nearest base, which was where they started from in Hotel 12. And I killed all 34 of the Banshees. Man, that was a tough fight. Like, jeez. But the monsters, or sorry, I should say the Banshees are gone. However, that does not end our monster problems. To recap, we destroyed the orb last turn. We destroyed the swarm this turn. But you know what? When it rains, it pours, and Noah, it feels like rain, because goodness gracious, another one of those bloody monsters showed up, and it showed up in... Oh, no, wrong hex. Hold on. I'm looking for the email here, because I saw it. I was just shaking my head. So in Romeo 19, I'll show you the map here in a second, a monster shows up right on top of my base. I didn't even have a chance to move anything to respond, and blew it out of the water. Let me show you where that is. So here you can see our map, and along this row of bases, along the gray dark, so to speak, you will see here Romeo 19. So a monster showed up there this turn and blew that up. No ability to respond. Unbelievable. Not even my patrol. So we have a series of ships that are in the quote-unquote patrol. They're like police, and they keep raiders away and things like that, but not negatively impacting the monster situation, which sucks. So that happened. Wonderful. So excited. So let me take a moment and just go back to the chat. Let's see here. So Jim seems to be laughing at me, if not the triple T. Incidentally, the triple T comes from the reason I'm thinking that is because of Henry Cejudo, who is arguably a former UFC fighter. He was known as Triple C because he was the triple champion. He had an Olympic medal, and he won the undisputed title in 2 different weight categories in the UFC. But now he's looking to potentially come back and fight another weight class up, Alexander Volkanovski, who is the current champion in his weight division, and he wants to fight him in his return from retirement and win that title. So we'll see how that works out. But that's where I was coming up with triple C / triple T. Very dirty word, he says. The reaction to being poked, it's genetic programming. Yeah, that could be a dirty line of conversation. Let's steer away from that ever so quickly and head back to talking about the military situation here. Let me bring up for you guys the situation with the Juggernauts. So you'll see here on the Juggernaut, what are they called? Lasath fleet. That's that Juggernaut fleet that popped in out of nowhere. Now, very unfortunate that they showed up there. However, I am very fortunate to have a supplementary fleet here. So the Klingons have Imperial War Reserve first. We have a Dreadnought C4B, which is in a straight 8 ship. A D6M, which is a straight 7. Excuse me, had to sneeze. And we have a total of 9 E4Ms here. In addition to those 9 E4Ms, there's also an additional 6 here. So that puts us at a total of 15 frigates, cruiser, and a dreadnought. So let's go fight them, because chances are, when I saw these guys pop up on the map, that they were going to go up or down and pop a base, because that's what they do. They show up and they like to blow stuff up. Interesting to note, that's not what they were doing, apparently. As I look at the email, so for example, they showed up and I went to attack them, but prior to attacking them, I sort of sent them a message. And in response, this is what they sent. Where are they? New enemy? Yes. Okay. So this is the message that came out. Daniel has seen this. He'll probably laugh. So the Great Hall, Cylonian City, Cylonia, Xanas system. Don't worry about that. That's just city, sort of location. But at 15 February 116. So that's where we are in the cycle. Spring. It's actually winter spring of 116. The gold armored being strode into the dim chamber and knelt before the throne. "Speak, Centurion," the deep voice echoed from above. Standing erect, the gold Centurion gave its report in a monotone voice. "The Lassath fleet successfully transited dimensional fold Juliet 4, but was intercepted unexpectedly in sector Oscar 29. It did not reach the Federation of Planets. It is the Klingons. We should have a battle report within the day." The voice from above spoke slowly and thoughtfully. "If the Klingons wish to interfere with our plans, then we shall accommodate them. Mobilize the fleet. We will show our former subject race their place." So very interesting, pardon my voices, that they took that particular approach because, that sounds like they're taking the approach that they're the old kings of Klingon lore and history, which I know that there's at least one person in the chat who will oppose that particular perspective. But that they were going for the feds. So they went to Oscar 19, which, as I show you on the map here, is in between the bases, right here. And so he was on a diagonal line heading for the feds. Now, here's the thing. If you're going to go after the feds, why would you pop up in Klingon space? Like, why, if you're that advanced, why would you do that? Now, maybe that's something they couldn't control. Who knows? Have no idea. But they show up there, they head on down, and yeah, so we have a fight. Let me show you what that fight's like. Because, man, it did not go well for me at all. Oh, my goodness. So the Oscar 9 battle and results. So just to give you a sense of who I was fighting. So I brought a dreadnought, and my dreadnought is a straight 8. It's an 8 attack, 8 defense ship. I had a cruiser to support it, which was a 7, straight 7, so 7 attack, 7 defense, and then the 15 E4Ms. So they have a 4 attack and 3 defense. So to put that into context, that means that I have a total of 9 frigates at 4 attack. So that's 36 attack factors that they can bring to the battle. And then the dreadnought and the D6 combined, they have a combined attack factor of 15. So 15 on the 36, that gives us 54 attack factor combined. It didn't go my way because they have in their fleet. So previously in Juggernaut fleets, we were dealing with a cruiser, a light cruiser, a destroyer, and 3 frigates. This time they brought a dreadnought, a DN TAC A, so I'm assuming that's an assault dreadnought, a cruiser, a light cruiser, a destroyer, and not but 3, but 6, my friends. 6 of these frigates. Why are these frigates important? Because these frigates have a shield regen factor or technology that basically means instead of the straight 5 ship that they require 8 damage to cripple. So they're like a straight 8 ship. And there's 6 of them. Unbelievable. So to give you a context, the Dreadnought and the CA, and I will show this to you on Vassal, so you can, it might be hard for you to see because it's so small. But if we go into ships here, and we can pick miners and Juggernauts, it might be hard for you to see them because it's kind of small. But basically, this is the DNA in the top corner. It is a 18 attack, 16 defense ship. 18 attack. 18 attack. The cruiser, which was the bane of my existence before, is a 12 attack. The 12 and the 18, 30 attack factors for 2 ships, both of which are maulers, meaning that they have the ability to singularly target ships or bases. There is like nothing I can do against those. And of course, they're not alone. They bring a CL, which is the equivalent of my Dreadnought, a DD, which is a straight 6 ship, and then these frigates, which are, like I say, they're equivalent of like a 5 attack, 8 defense ship because of the shield regen tech that they have. And they got 6 of them. 6 of these things. Incroyable. Or as to quote the Princess Bride, inconceivable. So what happened? Well, you can imagine I got my Tookus handed to me. Here's what happened. I lost. Of the 15 frigates I brought to the fight, I lost 11 of them. 4 of them got crippled, so 4 of them survived, and my cruiser, my Dreadnought, survived without a scratch. I retroed or got out of there to bases to survive. But, you know, that wouldn't be so bad if I had taken out the enemy or caused them significant pain and suffering. But what did I do to them, Tony? I mean, how did you hurt them? Oh, well, we destroyed 1 frigate and crippled 3. Now, the crippling is good, but that effectively means I lost 11 of my ships to their 1. They crippled 4 of mine, and I only crippled 3 of theirs. And they still got the destroyer, the light cruiser, the cruiser, and the Dreadnought. And oh my goodness. So, I got my ass handed to me. But now what? Are they going to, as per the sort of ominous communication in that email, are they going to redirect their efforts to me specifically as the Klingons? Or are they going to continue their prodigious efforts against the Federation? It's a no-win scenario. If they attack the Feds, yeah, okay, sure, but it's just a matter of time before they come for me again. And if not, they're going to redirect their efforts against me. What's going to happen as a result of this? Well, I'm going to have to reach out to the Fédération and ask for their help because, man, there is no way that I'm going to be able to destroy this fleet on my own based on what I've got in theater. I can eventually, obviously. I can outproduce and eventually cripple those ships. However, this is crazy. They're going to cause so much damage in the meantime, and most likely cross the border and start popping some Fed bases too once they've finished, destroying 2 or 3 of mine. I am going to request some Federation assistance here, and considering the battle groups that are in the neighborhood. So they were in Oscar 29. I don't believe that they retreated out of that hex. I had to retreat. So if that's where they are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all of the major battle groups, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all 3 of the 4 major battle groups in the area can support me. Let me show you what I mean. So here you can see right next to my head, you've got Second Fleet and Battle Fleet 1 and 4. So let's just take a quick look at what's there. So Battle Fleet 1 and Battle Fleet 4. So fundamentally, you've got Battle Fleet which Battlefleet is this? Battlefleet 1 is the one with all the frigates. And so if he were to bring Battlefleets, well, if he were to bring both Battlefleets with a total of 5 cruisers, and I bring my Dreadnought and my cruiser, and we use his frigates as flak, I think we have a chance. I can use my ship if we're doing like an allied attack. I can use my ship as the command platform, so we can bring as many as 11 ships into that fight. And yeah, I think we could do some significant damage. But like I say, it's like we got to work together to take him out, because oh my goodness, those Juggernauts are going to just destroy us. They're going to go Conan on our galactic asses, so to speak. So anyways, that's the situation when it comes to those battles. I'm waiting on the turn. Of course, 102 will be coming shortly, and hopefully I'll be able to give you guys a quick recap or map reveal as to what's going on there before the end of the weekend. The anticipation being that there's going to be a lot of sort of back and forth chatter in the back end once the map reveals, because that's the way the cookie crumbles. Once you get to see people, you get to talk, and all sorts of things start to happen. And then it'll be interesting to see what comes forward. Now, that being said, for all of you that are watching this and are not in any way part of the game, if you're still interested in joining, like I said at the very beginning of the episode, we still have room for as many as 2 more players. So if you're interested, please head over to the Facebook page, which is currently at the top of the chat. I will also put it in the comments and pin it to the top after this episode, after I'm done with the episode. And head over there and Facebook message me through the Lost Stars page and see if, communicate with me. We can get you started to be able to potentially join the next game. It's going to be interesting with as many as, at this point, 13 players. The maximum number of players we've ever had in a game is 7. It effectively doubles that number and makes the game so much more dynamic. You're going to get to see in the coming turns the sort of the hot mess that gets created when you have all these different personalities juggling between each other and negotiating back and forth about what it is they want to do and what they think they have the right to do versus not, and so on and so forth. Of course, if you've ever played a war game, this is sort of like par for the course, but it's just so funny to watch it happen in this context, because in this particular game, you've got a bunch of, for all intents and purposes, you have 5 entitled players, empires, factions, who are established, big, and carry a big stick. And then you've got the other players who are joining in who are smaller, and how are they going to interact? Are they going to accept a bully kind of a reaction from one of these legacy players with a big stick, or are they going to fight back? And if they do, are they going to do it on their own? Are they going to gang with other people? Are they going to bring in another major faction? What's going to happen? The dynamics of what's coming in the next couple of turns and sort of like between now and the end of Christmas is going to be so exciting to watch, because it's going to be total war at some point. At some point, the gloves are coming off and stuff is going to go down. But how that breaks down, who starts what, and how they interact, who knows? The Tholians just got a wormhole into the backyard of the Borax. Is that going to be a point of contention? Are they going to start a fight? I know that those particular players have a yearning to fight each other, and have for the longest time. In the last game, we fought a 3 powers war, which was the Tholian player and myself versus the player that's playing the Borax. We lost handily because he had a significant tech advantage on both of us, and was able to basically take turns holding one person at bay with a hand and beating with the other. It was ridiculous. Now the tables have turned somewhat. You've got 2 factions who are basically equivalent in strength militarily, well, arguably, certainly economically. And can the Tholians go through that wormhole and hold that beachhead and make progress against the Borax? If they start doing that, that's going to potentially weaken their border with the Paravians. Will the Paravians take advantage of that? Who knows? The Paravians just found the Romulans. Are they going to start a fight with the Romulans, or are the voices from the dark, as I refer to it, is that going to be some kind of bone of contention? Are they going to sort of group together and attack the Paravians or jump them in some way? Who knows? The Juggernaut faction, which keeps being a pain in everyone's butt, is obviously making headaches for me, but are they going to pop up in somebody else's backyard and cause an issue? Are they going to do it at a weird critical time, which is going to create a hole that someone can move into? What's going to happen with the Kzinti? The Kzinti and I just met. Are we going to get along? I hope so, but who else is in the dark? And how is that going to manifest? And of course, the Federation, the Paravians, and the Borax are searching that little pocket of gray. And how is that going to work out? What are they going to find there? Somewhere in this map, the Juggernaut faction is based. Somewhere in this map, there is a pocket of highly advanced, very dangerous ships that can punch hard and do a lot of damage. And whoever finds them first is going to be in for a wicked surprise. What that looks like, who knows? We'll see. But it'll be very interesting to see how that evolves in the coming turns. So if that interests you and you're excited about seeing how that goes, then please hit the subscribe button or follow us depending on your platform. Get notifications so that you know when these videos are coming out. And if you are interested in participating in this, which is always the objective here, because I mean, we are all about creating this community of players that are interested in playing this game together and having fun. If that's something that interests you in any way, shape, or form, then please join us. Head over to the Facebook page, communicate with me via Facebook Messenger, and we can connect and get you into the game. Like I say, we're at 13. We have a total of 15 that we could potentially have as a max, and it'd be great to get those 2 other players into the game. Can you imagine a game of 15 in a game like this, in a map like this? How big will the map be? How close will we all be? Oh, it's going to be interesting and exciting for sure. Let me quickly go into the chat here. So what do we got here? Ouchie Mac, ouch, ouch. What do we got here? Okay, so the reaction of being poked, Janetta, of course. Understatement of the century, Jim says, probably in regards to my dirty thoughts. Bill's talking about pain. Jim, remarkable self-control, Tony. Thank you very much. You have no idea how hard I'm working at it. Yay, he said it this time. He said it this time. What did I say? What did I say? Daniel Eastland. What is that? I can't make out what that icon is. By your command. Oh, by your command. Very nice. Bill Smith. So this Juggernaut 4 or 5? So is this Juggernaut 4 or 5? 4 or 5? 4 or 5 what, Bill? What do you mean? Jim says Tridents at Dawn. Pan-galactic galaxy-wide war. That's right. Total War. It's coming. Don't be shy. Basically, it'll be stereo sound, Dolby, what are we at now? 10.1 surround? Like, it's going to be crazy. Yes, very, very nice. So that's where we're at on the chat side. Like I say, if you're interested in playing this game, then please reach out to us. Get involved because we'd love to be able to get, man, amazing as 15 players. That would be fantastic. One last thing for all of you out there as a question, if this is something that would interest you, is so we have a number of new players that are joining the game. You have a number of these folks who are currently playing these other factions, the Lions and Tigers and Bears, oh my, and their experience of engaging with the sort of veteran players, the legacy players, and what their experience is of playing the game, learning or sort of relearning F&E rules, because many of us have played F&E in one sort of season of our lives. Myself, I started playing Federation Empire once when I was 14, many moons ago. And I have never had an opportunity to play it since, until I met the group of players that I'm currently playing with, and this happened. I've always been a huge fan of turn-based strategy, whether it was like board games like Risk, or love Axis and Allies. There's a couple other turn sort of based strategy games like that. Love games like Civilization and that entire series. Most recently, I think it's called Humankind, I think. But those kinds of turn-based strategy games, even the Total War series, love the Total War series, the sort of tactical battlefield control, but the turn-based strategic control, love that. And so in this case, this is sort of a pitch. If you know anybody at Creative Assembly, then please pitch them in this idea. F&E is a strategic level gameplay game. We love it because we love to play this game, those of us that play it, because it's that it scratches that Star Trek itch and is a fairly complex strategy game when it comes to this kind of stuff. I put this sort of one step above Axis and Allies in my tier. Risk is at the very sort of, that's my baseline. Axis and Allies is sort of intermediate, and F&E is definitely advanced. The rule set for this is a thick book. So this is the strategic level gameplay. Starfleet Battles, which for all of you who are Amarillo Design Bureau fans know this game, SFB is the tactical level gameplay of this same game. It's the ship-to-ship battle. It's the ship simulator. It's the Captain Kirk simulation, Jean-Luc Picard, your choice. Pick your captain, but you're driving that ship and you're firing phasers, photons, disruptors, plasma, whatever it is, and you're having those ship-to-ship battles. Total War as a franchise, and we've seen this with Total War Warhammer, is a series that allows you to play the strategic level and the tactical level if you want to. Should that be interesting? We've already seen a tactical level gameplay simulator in the form of Starfleet Command, a game that came out, was it late 90s or at least around the 2000s? It came out in 3 iterations. First 2 were kind of rough. The last one was very good for its time. And it replicated the Starfleet Battles experience very well. Can you take that kind of experience and a streamlined sort of relatively simple gameplay experience on the tactical level and incorporate that into a strategic level gameplay? If you ever played SFC, you know that they had what was called the Dynaverse, which was supposed to be something akin to this in the sense it was like a living environment where you would fight battles in certain hexes and you would sort of take territory. And you kind of see that in a lot of first-person shooters today. A name of one is escaping me right off the top of my head, but you could have factions or players trying to control areas of a map over the period of, let's say, for example, 24 hours or 48 hours, trying to get points between clans and things like that. So you see that kind of gameplay happen. Would there not be an opportunity to do something like that, either in a perpetual MMO type universe, something akin to like maybe not quite a Star Citizen, because I mean Star Citizen hasn't actually released, theoretically, but something like an Eve or something like that, where you have a perpetual universe that exists in that context, or something more like a Total War or Civilization or whatever that, pick your poison, when you have a game that you can play single player or potentially multiplayer. It would be really interesting to see that. Just food for thought. If it would be within the interest of someone like Creative Assembly to partner with whoever has the IP on this, or could enable the IP on this in a digital format, and bring that gameplay to the desktop in a kind of game that would get everybody excited. I think it'd be really neat. We're kind of replicating that here and now when it comes to this kind of game without the SFB gameplay, but it'd be kind of cool to see that kind of occur. If you could ever do that in person, it'd be so neat. Let me visit. Okay, so Chuck says, no way that Paramount would agree to it. You're probably right. For those of you, I mean, I'm sure everyone here in the chat knows, but anyone who's watching this, the control of the intellectual property around Star Trek is just a gong show, in the sense that it's not unified under one house like Star Wars is under Disney or even the MCU right now. it's scattered, and because it's partitioned in the way that it is, you've got things like the JJ verse versus stuff that you would see in the original series. You've got the inability to create substantial fan fiction like the Axanar case and that whole kit and caboodle, and sort of the misalignment that you see between the series Picard and the aesthetic of TNG, for example, like the design language between those ships, those, even just the general aesthetic of how the bridge looks versus what was in the past. It's not it. I'm going to get on my soapbox here for about 2 seconds. So if you look at TNG and DS9 and Voyager and even Enterprise, and you look at those now, those are their own IP in the sense that they are separate from TOS as far as the licensing goes. All of those have a similar design language. There is a thread of DNA that you can track between all of them. Not only the uniforms are very similar, and you see the progression, obviously, through the uniforms in TNG to DS9 and Voyager and so on. You saw that track. You saw the changes in the uniform progress as the seasons progressed in those series. You saw the design language as far as like what a warp nacelle looks like, the color of it, the shape of it, the sort of aesthetic of ships. I mean, even the Defiant, which was a departure from the traditional sort of saucer section, secondary hull, warp nacelles hanging out. That was a departure from that design language, but it still fit within the context of the greater fleet, so to speak. You saw those connections, like that was there. And you even saw in those television series, you saw movie era design language translate, like the Excelsior, the Miranda class, and all the different variations of the Miranda class. We never saw an Enterprise class or like an Enterprise A type ship in TNG, which would have been neat to see considering how many Mirandas we saw. But there was a continuity there. You could see that. And even when Enterprise came out, Enterprise was designed like they intentionally picked a design language that was that harkened back to, or would be, you could see you could see a connection between where Enterprise was aesthetically into where it could be in the original series, i.e., for example, the design of their uniforms, the color palette that they used, the design language in the ship, the choice of using mechanical switches in many of the buttons, for example, on the Enterprise bridge, and the continuity of that into the Enterprise bridge of TOS, and the fact they had mechanical buttons because it was filmed in the 60s. That kind of continuity is that, I believe, and you guys tell me if you're Star Trek fans, what sort of vintage of Star Trek fan you are. Does that scratch your Trek itch in that context, or does it not? For me, it definitely does. I like that. Axanar, or if you go and watch the prelude to Axanar short, we'll call it a short movie, that was very much in the same design language as traditional Star Trek, or in any of the Star Trek that I just talked about. Like it could fit seamlessly there. Even the uniforms that they used, the designs of the ships, everything had continuity. You could see it fitting together. Don't get me wrong, in all those television series, there are things you can pick out, but generally speaking, it was there. You saw you see a huge divergence from that in the JJ inspired content. The sort of the Chris Pine era Star Trek movies, the Discovery, which, whether you like it or not, I don't. It's just not my thing. Even Picard. Now, while I like Picard, I don't like the aesthetic of what they have there. I mean, obviously, a Borg cube is a Borg cube is a Borg cube. You can't get away from the square aesthetic of a Borg ship. But even just the way the ships are designed, I did like how they harken back in that one Picard episode to like an old school Romulan warbird. That looks so cool. I don't understand why they can't incorporate some more Trekky, more traditional Trek aesthetics in that. But, Lower Deckers, Star Trek Lower Decks, there we are, is a really good example of the continuity coming back. That, what was the name of the ship? Cirrhosis. No, not cirrhosis. Anyways, the name of the ship in that series, when you look at it, it totally fits with the aesthetic, and they did that intentionally, of the TNG era universe, like post Nemesis. Like the nacelles look a little different, but the general shape of the saucer section is very galaxy-esque. Like it totally fits. And you see the introduction of other that era Star Trek peppered into the series. Like it's there's continuity there. So Lower Decks really makes sense to me. It scratches or like satisfies that Star Trek desire, whereas Discovery does not. It'll be really interesting to see Brave New World, like the Christopher Pike series, what that looks like and how that comes forth. Because I know personally, when I've seen some of the shots of it, I don't like. I can get into it, but there's a lot of it that I don't like. Is it appealing to a newer generation? Like, are you a new Star Trek fan? Like the way the bridge looks and things like that. I've seen some shots of that in the trailers and the teasers that they have. It looks really good to me. I just don't know whether we'll have to wait and see about the series, whether like we'll really enjoy it, whether I will really enjoy it, and whether it scratches that itch. I know Star Trek Lower Decks does. I know Discovery does not. Will that meet that requirement? I have no idea. With that said, let me get off my soapbox and get away from that. So let me just do one last round of chat and bring us to an end here. So no way Paramount would agree with it. Totally agree. Same. Just can't get them to run on W10. Windows 10? Is that Windows 10? Oh, right. Okay, so we're talking about the games. Right. So just can't get it to work on Windows 10. Got it. Yeah, Paul, I still like... I think if I went digging into my storage somewhere, I could find an old copy of SFC, or Starfleet Command, but it wouldn't work because it was a Windows 95 or 2000, Windows 2000 game. I think you'd have to really dig to try and find some kind of emulator that would make it work. One of the things I remember is that I think it was Interplay was the name of the publisher, and they suck. Like, they're just a really bad publishing house for games. They took something where it was all spelled out for them. All they needed to do was build a user interface that worked, and obviously it didn't in the first one. They got it by the third, but I mean, it could have been so much more successful a game if they'd been sort of more polished on its delivery from the beginning. Games like Total War, Civilization, things like that. Now, granted, they have a long history and heritage of building good stuff, but most recently, those games have gone through some revolutionary sort of reinterpretations. Civ, for example, Civ 6 was a big departure from previous aesthetics and the game experience. I know that Total War has gone through a mechanics change in the back end with Total War 3 or Total War Warhammer 3 and so on. So, like, it can be done. It's just that at that time, that particular design house in the 2000s was not as good as perhaps some other folks. But who knows? We'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to see how this stuff goes forward. So with that said, a little over, getting close to an hour and 20 minutes on this broadcast. Thank you so much for sticking with us if you've made it this far. Really appreciate your support on the channel. If you find this entertaining, please consider hitting the subscribe button. I will, as we get closer to Christmas, I'll be talking about not only the introduction of the new factions, so like the players coming in, which is going to be so exciting. But once we get kind of into that meat and potatoes of the exciting Total War meltdown that's going to be coming, I'm going to be sort of focusing our direction in audience growth. And from me to you, I'm asking for your help. I need ideas from you, help from you on how best to get this to a greater audience. Why? Because based on the data and the analytics that I see on YouTube, you guys who watch this love this. and I interpret that based on the fact that the click-through rate is really high when I come out with a live stream like this. The duration, the watch duration is really good when, as far as you're watching like 30, 40, or the entire 1 hour plus of any particular live stream. That's great. That shows me, it tells me that you're engaged with the content, or at least that's what I'm taking from that data. The question is, how can we tweak what we're doing? How can I tweak what I'm doing here to better meet your needs, be more concise, be brief? Obviously, I'm doing the opposite right now. And sort of meet that need in a time box that fits best for how you like to consume this video content. Do you want me to break this up into smaller videos? What kind of audiences should we be trying to bring into this community? Because again, if our goal is to build a community of players and or create entertaining content for you, how can we do that? And as far as the sort of the infrastructure of YouTube, it's important that we design content that resonates with folks so that we can build that exposure and build that audience. Between now and Christmas, the goal will be to get to 100 subscribers. We went through a pretty significant growth phase on this channel over the summer, and we're currently sitting at 46. Now, granted, in the world of YouTube, 46 is like a pea in the universe, so to speak, like it's incredibly small. But our objective here is to grow the audience, grow the player base, so that we can have sort of more dynamic, more exciting, more of these games. And so I need help from you as far as ideas and strategy and direction and just input, feedback on how best we can do that here and now. Should we start creating more shorts? There was a time when I was doing more shorts. I had more time to do that. Do you want to see more shorts? Do you want to see on different platforms? Right now, I'm still watching the Twitch chat. There's nobody there. I've got 6 different people here on the chat on YouTube. That's where we're living. And then, of course, there's Facebook, which I can't monitor right now, but we're also live streaming to Facebook. So where do you want to see us? Where do you want to connect with us? What kind of content do you want to see? Please tell me in the comments here. And again, reach out on Facebook Messenger in our Facebook group. And again, feed me that information. Tell me what you want to tell me. I would love your help. Again, between now and Christmas, our goal will be to try and get to 100 subscribers. We're currently at 46, so we left to double it and a little bit more to get to 100. But if we can get to 100 by New Year's, that would be fantastic. Really appreciate all you guys watching the show. I appreciate you guys joining the live stream. I mean, we've got Jim, we got Chuck, we got Paul, Daniel's in there somewhere as I'm scrolling through. There's Bill. Yeah, I mean, you guys are awesome. These are obviously some of the players that have joined the game, and I'm really excited for 102 when it comes out the turn, and we get to see some of those players in the mix. So with that being said, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for joining us today on the show. And I will see you, or rather I should say, be on the lookout for that live stream later this week. Short little live stream where we're going to be doing a turn reveal of 102. So with that said, bye for now, and I will see you in the next episode.